been employed for recording and the education of indigenous languages. So too has policy such as the 2008 Nunavut Inuit Language Protection Act. So now we're going to talk about First Nation education funding debate. Aboriginal people have enduring education issues for a long time, such as shorting of Aboriginal education funding in Canada. This is evidence of quality, leading to a low secondary school graduation for Aboriginal people. This is beside economic challenges caused by narrowing federal funding. Federal funding raises by less than 2%, which is minimum. The graduation rate for First Nation student is just 35%, coming to non-Indigenous student at 78%. The solution to this problem is faced that Aboriginal students have been given more funding fees in this next few years, up to $179 billion Canadian dollar in 2026. Police correlation with this issue is highly related to this issue season. Without education, more poverty comes into equation, destroying the economic. Fewer requests into the police, hence increasing the crime rate of some First Nation communities. With a decrease in the demand for education, fewer job openings are created, and to order maintain levels of education, we must addressing the underlying issues. Crime springing into order a solution for this problem, education events must be stronger to improve the economic and dress police officers to ensure secured by society. Because we know that funding First Nation students is important to ending social issues that impact public safety, economic balance, and interests. Police as a justice system, a grace and duty pounds to a sense in policy that will guarantee better education and economic opportunity for First Nation. Police can prevent crime and poverty through prevention and outreach the community. Land as a teacher, understanding Indigenous land-based education. First Nation language, land, and intertraditional are related to Indigenous education. Indigenous knowledge is imparted through narrative and culture ways and in honoring of the natural world. Day 2, colonization. Indigenous culture ways like respecting and reciprocating ways. And learning about First Nation course and culture have been lost. Academics such as Dr. Emily Brand and Dr. Alex Wilson is a great that indigenous knowledge learning to Europe knowledge because of the focus on the spirit and the culture born with the land. The foundation of preserving those indigenous customs lie in education in order to preserve indigenous identity, customs, and culture. The police constitute half of the community, and they also adapt that community in order to learn and appreciate indigenous customs and culture. For example, language and knowledge indigenous about the land and respect for the land right, and the appreciate of importance of intertraditional education and the importance of language and narrative in indigenous culture. The police officers should be training to uphold and protect the rights of indigenous peoples and preserve that culture by enforcing the law and upholding the Canadian Constitution. The police officers should be also training on indigenous worldviews, historical injustice, and land-based education that will enable them to interact with indigenous people in a better way and more respectful and have a good relationships. Police also need to make sure that policing does not interfere with indigenous culture practicing by safeguarded. And the last thing that we're going to talk about it today is First Nation youth secondary and post-secondary education experience and outcomes. Looking back to the secondary school Indigenous and non-Indigenous gap, a huge gap at the post-secondary level of schooling exists at opening to their non-Indigenous peers. As relatives in the sisters, 63% of Indigenous First Nation youths has reached that level of secondary school by census year 2060. While behind 91% that's non-Indigenous youth, it is lower, still lower. Of course, amounting young who live in relatives where only 46% completed the education, the secondary education school, and just 23% go into post-secondary school. So those financial issues, early age, children care, and culture issues are accountable for low graduation rates. Dimensioning that rule of culture learning, for instance, First Nation language, values, and traditional in a training education. Police have an important part to play because they can help address that need of First Nation and non-Indigenous youth by establishing a trust and developing positive relationships in a community. Police officers serving in First Nation community are requested to be training into order comprehending the special problems of the young, particularly those resident on reserve. In addition, police officer can advocate for policy that facilitate greater education opportunity for First Nation young people, especially in a mortar of rural community. For supportive education systems such as financing, monitoring programs, and access to sufficient cultural resources, police agency not only contribute to the preservation of public security, but also to activate that additions the access of First Nation learnings toward scholarly achievements. So now we are in the end of this presentation. We're gonna answer the first 5 questions that we asked in the beginning, and the answer will show on the slides. The first question was, how do Indigenous people preserve their culture today? Number 2, what is the impact of private schools on education in Canada? Number 3, how does police present contribute to the preservation of Indigenous culture? Number 4, what challenges do Indigenous community face in preserving their traditional? Number 5, how do private schools impact social and economic opportunity in Canada? So now I'm going to post the final 5 questions as a video. we are in the end of this presentation. Thanks for watching and hopefully it was useful to you. Thank you. Have a great day.